Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Talking Skritt. I'm your host John, better known as Dale. Running accidentally, fantastic show for you. WvW server restructuring updates, guild chat on the Deepstone Fractal, and the biggest PR issue in arena history. Has it just occurred? And much more, but first let me introduce you to my fellow host. He is a moderator over at MMO Champion and host of Zero to Hero on this very channel. Like any of us, does he have any clue what is going on deep in the valley of this week's news? Say hello to Jim. Well said. And if somehow you're listening to this audio auditorily, yeah, well, you're confused. But we will be moving on. He streams over on Twitch, where he answers the age-old question. With the beginning talks of WvW Restructuring, what if this week's news is also just a fragment of the myths, and somewhere there's a universe where everything is great? Say hello to Age. Oh boy, this is gonna be this is a show.
Everything's great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm a counterbalance myself.
Good.
Everything's awesome.
Ooh. Now I got the Lego song stuck in my head.
In some universe, in somewhere in the mist, everything is awesome. Sadly, we are not in that universe right now. So.
Eesh. This fractal instability is crazy. You can see his stuff over on Twitch and YouTube at MMO Inks. With all the stuff that went down this week, I have a feeling that he has had a bit of a tough day that has lasted over the week. He's our Canadian Bacon of Guild Wars 2. Say hello to Inks.
It's been a week, for sure.
Well, if you have no idea what that intro is all about, good on you. You've missed it. We'll touch upon it. If you have heard about it, don't worry. We're gonna try to avoid the drama aspects of it and keep it gaming related. We'll talk more about that when we get to it. But first, let's talk about, we did get the Long Live the Lich patch Reddit AMA. They tend to do these after the new releases come out. With all the issues they had when it released, they kind of pushed it back. So, we finally got to hear about it. They talked about a numerous amount of topics. If you guys have particular things you want to talk about, and Chad, if you want to start, if there's certain things out of the AMA that you found interesting, definitely let us know. But was there anything you guys definitely picked out that you were like,
I want to see roller beetle races in Corteria, because there are so many places in Corteria where it would. Could you imagine a race that goes around the lake in Kessex Hills? Like the zone is set up perfectly for it. Also, is it bad of me to hope that we have server instability issues every release, so the AMA gets pushed back a little bit?
Maybe that was the new tech that they were designing, to have issues on release day so they can. No, probably not.
Yeah, but I kind of agree with Malfanis about that. Like, I really like. Well, I don't really like that there were server instabilities, but I like the idea that we have some time to actually play the patch and get a good grasp of everything, and then we can formulate questions a lot better, especially for the people who have busy weeks during the week, and they can't join the AMAs if they really wanted to, but they just don't have a good grasp of the patch. So yeah. But out of the things, I do like the idea of adding more lore to the Gen 2 legendaries. I know Malfanis enjoyed that a lot. So that's definitely one thing that I would look forward to personally. There was, I know, the Lux Sync. I know Inks has a bit of a problem with that. But they agree that it's not a priority for them, but it's something that they do need to address.
I have to admit, I did think of you, Inks, when I read that line.
It's funny because Mighty Teapot's been championing. That's not the word. He's been sort of supporting that cause lately as well, because he's been luck capped for some time. And I realize there's a lot of players in game who are probably not luck capped just yet, depending on how often you play or break down or whatever the case is, how many trick-or-treat bags you open, for example. But I don't necessarily see the harm in just increasing it anyway. Unfortunately, it's not a priority, so I don't actually expect anything to be done about it anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how much essence people hoard that, like how much extra percentage they would have if they used it all.
Depends how they make it scale. I think if they're going to increase it, it would be smart to have it just keep doubling or something like that. That's not how it actually works currently, but I've got a lot of luck stored up, and Teapot's got a lot stored up, and I'm sure there's lots of people out there who store it as well. And it's not that there's not uses for luck. There are some uses, but there's so much luck out there that I don't think those uses are enough of a sink, really.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. Clouded brings up a point. Just make it an item eater. Like
this. You could make a luck eater for sure.
The other thing that I thought of while you were talking about that is what Ectos can salvage into T6 dust, right?
Yeah.
Just make luck salvage into lower dust.
Yeah, they could do that. Yeah, I mean, there's solutions out there for what to do it. Like, you don't have to raise the luck cap necessarily. I would prefer that they raise the luck cap because 300 luck doesn't really have that big of an impact. Even getting to like 800 luck when you're doing opening envelopes doesn't have a huge. It has an impact, but it doesn't have a game-breaking impact, in my opinion. But
I can understand them wanting to cap Magic Find. Like that's a control,
sure,
because you know, if you can just raise it infinitely, it's kind of a thing where it becomes well.
I'm just wondering, from my own personal perspective, and I know it's a low priority, but if they said tomorrow, okay, you can salvage luck into X, would I actually salvage it, or would I continue to hold out and pray for a luck cap increase? I don't know what I would do, honestly.
I would probably hold, personally for me, I would probably hold on to it, but if they ever implemented like if you salvage it and you get dust, like if I would have it as reserves, because hopefully they would not be like, oh, you know what, we remove that feature. Like they would be like, if I ever need it, I have it, but that would be me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like all the ideas, like a luck eater item, or like Chat was saying earlier, you know, salvaging it into dust. But
yeah, I mean, maybe at some point they'll address it. I don't expect to see anything addressed anytime soon. It's nice to hear that they're aware that they probably need to do something about it eventually. It might be another year or two before we actually see any action on that.
It's on the table.
It's nice to know that they're aware that, you know, there's a bit of an issue for some people.
Mystic Chocolate Coins, new food buff. There you go.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. I'd get them out of game. But yeah, they also kind of talked about like looking at the tutorials, and especially since we've had more of an influx of new players, it's like it is one of those things where it's really tough to. I think we all take it kind of for granted. Yeah. So they said they are looking in there. Don't expect it in the immediate future, since it's still in the design phase, and a quality tutorial will need voice acting and a lot of testing to make sure it actually teaches the skill. But it is on their radar. So
yeah. Another thing from the AMA that I found was interesting, because you know how like all the raiders have been clamoring like when's a new raid and stuff. So one interesting thing was that the raids and Fractal team are now one team. It's been well over a year now, but it seems like not. Someone asked about it, and so it's kind of interesting. The other thing is that when is the next raid ring? Obviously, it was a question that probably came up, and they said the next raid is essentially done. They're only waiting for late stage development assets like VO. So
yeah, so hopefully we'll see that soon. Like, hopefully we don't have to wait on the next Living Story, since that's...
Well, they said that raids are tied to Living Story releases.
Oh. Ugh.
Or something to that effect, right? So I think it's probably a decent guess that we might not see that. I mean, I hope they release it before then, but we may not see it until then.
Yeah.
We do know that we'll see it before the next Fractal, but Fractals are every 2 Living Story releases, so we won't see the next Fractal release until episode 5. Brutal.
It's as much as I dislike the drought or rather the long time in between releases for raids and fractals. I would rather them pace themselves instead of trying to rush the content. Like I'd rather it be good, not quick. And to be completely honest, I'm kind of surprised. I'm not really surprised of the merging of the raid and fractal teams, because with the fractals that have come out, they're basically 5-man raids with the way the mechanics work and everything.
I mean, so 100 CM is sort of a 5-man raid. The latest Fractal is certainly not on that level or scale.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm
That's what
talking.
it is, but it's...
They did say that this one was supposed to be on the easier side this time around.
Right, they have a lot more room for difficulty scaling in fractals, but I mean more on the mechanics side of things, like when they introduce new mechanics, like the bouncy balls for the
Sure.
I can't remember what that fractal was called.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was the one. It was the new one with, well, the newer one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
that's it.
observatory. Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. And like, so from a mechanics standpoint, they're basically kind of doing the same thing. Numbers are different. Fractals have a...
Sorry.
But fractals have much more diversity in numbers and tuning. But again, like the core thing for any kind of group content is you want to make it engaging. So it comes down to mechanics first. So I'm really not surprised that even if they're not necessarily all the same people, like you could have like 80% of both teams are the same people, and then you've just got a few specialists that glom on to either start or finalize a project. But I'm not surprised by that at all.
Well, and like some of it was saying earlier in chat was, you know, because I think a lot of people are saddened to hear that it is one team, but like they kind of described it. They still have people working on both things, and then some people that will switch back and forth. So it's, you know, it's one team, but it's kind of like, it's not like one's getting there and collecting dust, or like somewhat like a couple people are slowly working on it, but while the other group is maybe helping out.
Unfortunately, and we don't know the internals. I'm not going to pretend to know the internals, even though they said one team. We don't know the size of that one team,
Yeah.
or how it's divvied up, or how resources are shared, or whatever the case is. But I think that the fans would point to, or people would point to, the fact that content seems to have slowed pace from its original pace. Maybe not fractals, but on the raid side of things, let's say going from raid 2 or 3 till now, that pace has definitely slowed, and it feels like it's getting a bit slower and slower and slower. Maybe this is as slow as it'll get, but we also haven't seen the new Fractal yet. And I think that is what is sort of making people angry. They hear that it's one team, they feel that the pace is slower, so they immediately assume that, well, the team must have gotten smaller. And it's taking too long, quite honestly, for most fans of that content.
Chad saying, could it be because of a new X-Pack on the horizon?
I don't think this year we'll see an X-Pack.
Oh, no.
Development on an X-Pack right now, I mean, maybe, but I really don't think so. I feel like if there's going to be an next pack, it's going to be like around summer, fall next year, if anything. So they have plenty of time to actually make an next pack. It's usually, I think they took 7, 8 months for Path of Fire, if I recall correctly.
We won't.
Maybe a little more.
I think that the closest thing we'll hear is maybe a little bit of a teaser at the end of this current living story.
It'll be next year for sure. And for me personally, 5-man, raids are certainly one thing. I'm slowly starting to get back into raids, but 5-man instance content is what I do on a daily basis. Sort of, that's what keeps me playing the game right now. Story, for as good as, and we're going to talk about this, for as good as I feel like it's starting to get, or the improvements that are being made there, the retention value for on a monthly basis or on a 2-monthly or 3-monthly basis just isn't there for me personally. So what do I do in the meantime between story patches? Do I log out and play another game? I could do that, sure, but I would much rather continue playing the MMORPG that I enjoy so much. And 5-man instance content is sort of my go-to for that. Some people like Roll vs. World, some people do structured PvP, and those are all valid things to do. And really, I guess for maximum enjoyment, you should probably play a mixture of all of those things. But the 5-man instance content feels kind of slow and lacking. And so, I think people point to that. Yes, Leo, he agrees.
Is it slow and lacking in terms of the gameplay or in terms of the content?
It's really about the repeatability of it, right? People go into Fractals, they do their dailies. Some people don't even do recommendeds anymore. I still do recommendeds. But they do their Tier 4 dailies, which is usually 3 Fractals. Maybe they do CMs. I don't think CMs are as popular, perhaps, for everybody. And then they don't, and then that's it. And then you're done for the day. And then you go do something else. Mm-hmm. Except that there's, dungeons are in a lackluster state, so that's not really the go-to for people anymore. And so they have to either go to other game modes, maybe some people raid, or some people just log off. I don't know. And then there's a group of people who don't even do Fractals anymore because they're just sort of tired of that. They're tired of that repeat that they've been going through for years. And what's the answer there? I don't know if a new system for Fractals has to be brought up or changes or what the case is. But it's starting to feel, at least to veteran players, if you're a brand new player, you don't have any of these worries yet. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, it took probably 7,000 hours to get here, which I think is extreme value for the dollar, right? At least for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But to veteran players who have been playing for years, for 2 years, 3 years, whatever the case is, I think that they're starting to feel like there's not enough there, repeatability-wise.
That's one of the problems with any long-running MMO, really. I mean, I know I ran into that when I was playing World of Warcraft, and I played that for way too long. So,
yeah, no, I get it, right? But and if there's enough turnover in population where enough new players are coming in, then as for the health, for the vitality of the game, maybe it doesn't matter so much. But if that's not happening, then some system has to be brought up. I mean, you can only develop things so quickly. And it's not like you can just say to ArenaNet, develop faster, go faster. I mean, they could hire more people, they could create more teams perhaps, but, there is a limit to how fast you can go. Do I think they're at that limit? No, perhaps not, but there is a limit there of how fast you can develop something. It's not going to change tomorrow or overnight, So I don't know. I expect ArenaNet has already thought about everything we're talking about. I'm sure they've already had meetings and discussions about this sort of thing. But, I hope to see some sort of change in the future to make some of this stuff a little more replayable. Because the living story maps don't feel that replayable most of the time. And there's a little replayability there, but are you going to get more than a month of replayability out of that when, you've got to wait 2 or 3 months. I mean, maybe the answer is just go play another game. I don't know. I hate to suggest that to people because I want Guild Wars 2 to be as active as it can be.
Well,
Mhm.
and that's always the weird thing is I don't know if they've personally ever changed their stance on it, but it was like, you know, leading up to launch, I still always remember the interviews where people are like, you know, people always trying to catch the devs trying to like be like, oh, so, you know, basically trying to catch them saying like, you know, the game's better than WoW or something, you know, something like that so they could run with it. But like I remember some devs going, you can have this game and WoW or whatever other game you have. Like you can like they've kind of even at the beginning had that mentality of like, you know, you can leave it for a while and come back and still be okay, which is good, but you know, it's possibly not financially good. You know,
7-Bit brought up something interesting. As much as I didn't initially like the idea of this for raids, maybe I am a little bit of an elitist when it comes to this part. Such a dirty word nowadays, right? But maybe they should look at doing some sort of story mode raids or something like that, where things are slightly toned down or something. At the same time, I think you should reinforce CM raids and provide 2 fronts there for people to enjoy, those who like harder content, those who like slightly easier content. But, you know, maybe that would open raids up to more people, and that way more people would care about what happens with that content. Because I think part of the problem right now is there's a large portion of the community who simply doesn't care what happens to raids because they don't play that content. So why should they really care?
because I mean, it is elite in that in the aspect of it is a smaller percentage of player base, which it's like, hey, people, remember Guild Wars originally was a PvP game. It's like, while there still is PvP, I would pretty much say PvE is the driving force of now Guild Wars 2 and kind of the end of Guild Wars 1. I mean,
Yeah, definitely.
so it's like, you know, it had to shift. It's like, it's where the people are. It's where they can make the money because it's a business. So yeah, if there aren't enough people supporting that type of game or that game mode, it's not going to see as much love, unfortunately.
It would help if I unmuted myself in order to actually speak.
It would.
Know that I was trying to speak. Kate brought up a good point. The monthly achievements.
Yeah.
A longer overarching goal. That would be kind of cool to see. So
Yeah. We have those, but it's just that you reach a certain cap because the problem was a lot of people were doing it for achievement points and they were just horribly burning themselves out.
Is there a reason that they got rid of the monthlies? I think the reason they got rid of the monthlies was to go to that daily login
I was
reward.
say a different system, yeah.
And because people were completing the monthlies in like 2 or 3 days. It would be nice if they brought monthlies back and adjusted it. Rewards have always sort of been an issue with Guild Wars 2, and how do you make people feel rewarded or whatever the case is. And I can appreciate that rewards is a very difficult thing to balance properly, because what I find rewarding is not what Deo finds rewarding or what Malthanis finds or Age finds rewarding. You know what I mean? We probably all have different opinions on how rewarded we feel for doing certain content. I will say this about raids very quickly. Rift has a system, or at least had a system, I haven't played Rift in years, where they allowed you to do sort of a personal instance raid. Now, it didn't really give you loot or anything like that, and it was really sort of a hollow teaser as to what the raid bosses actually did, but it sort of gave you the story beats of what happened in that raid by allowing you to play it with 1 to 5 people.
Yeah, actually, I've in the past always given Rift credit that they're the one group that, because, you know, that's one thing you always hear, and we heard it when raids came out, is like, oh, I don't want the stuff out of the instance. I just want to see the area, maybe a story revolving around it. And I know the first couple ones, they were called instant adventures or something like that, where you could take, I think, 1 to 2 people, but you would go in, and I know the one that I did a couple of times was basically you scouting ahead. So you got to deal with some of the raid bosses at like a lower scale, you know, of course, but it had some of their mechanics. But it was basically a precursor. Like, I think in this instance, after you defeated everything, the head of the Guardian side, I think, or something, or, you know, whatever side you were on, was like, we need to regroup our forces, blah, blah, blah. We'll get a bigger army, which led into the raid. So I think that was always the most interesting way of how someone kind of tried to find the balance.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that there should be a soloable story mode or something like that, but I think there's some middle ground. I think there's a developed middle ground there that you can come to make a less rewarding story mode in a starter raid, if you will, or whatever you want to call it. I think that needs to be supported by repeatable hard mode content, because there's a variable type of players, but opening that content up inevitably, and there's different ways you can do that. I think with other MMORPGs we see. I've seen someone saying that they don't like the way that WoW does it. Apparently, I don't know, but apparently that's not very well. Apparently, it's not very good. I can appreciate that
for raid
can go sideways, and I can also sit here and I can appreciate that takes even more time for developers to create. And perhaps, if that were the case that ArenaNet wanted to do, they would need to give them more resources, manpower, or whatever to achieve these things. But I see it as a positive for the game in the long run rather than anything else. Because right now we're waiting 7+ months per raid instance. The raid instance only has 2 to 3 bosses and a couple of events. And I'm not sure that that's really enough long-term for sort of a healthy raid environment. We're already seeing on the upper tiers of the raid front guilds disbanding, going to other games, and then they have to sort of combine with each other just to create that raid group. I don't think the situation is quite as dire on the middle to lower end of groups. I run with a group on Mondays that some of those people are part of like 4 or 5 different, you know, levels of raiding training groups. And so I don't think that level is suffering necessarily, because they're still working through the content together at different paces. But I think right now the upper tiers are suffering quite a bit from lack of release and so forth.
Yeah, because they're just plowing through those, like, all the wings in like 2-3 hours.
Right, and you're never going to be able to keep pace with that. And I'm not trying to suggest that you should try to, because you just can't. Right.
Well, that's something that Salisi brought up in chat a bit ago when we were talking about monthlies, is that you'll always have the people who will burn through the content.
Sure. You're always going to have that level 80 within the first 24 hours of release of a new game or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. and Droyer is one of those people usually, but he's also okay with that situation. He's not begging for more.
He's aware that he's doing that. And
right. But the other thing too to be said is there's also a group of players who don't even do raids currently, and I think they may not realize it, but I feel like they're missing out on a great experience as well. I mean, that's just my opinion, obviously. But I feel like there's a way that you can appease different sides of these crowds and open raids up to more people. Or at least I hope that there's a way that that's possible.
Yeah, I still see the thread on the forums where people kind of want a different type of mode, to like a barrier to entry mode for raids. And
I was gonna say, I mean, even going, like, at least for me, I know one thing that kind of, when we were doing raids when they first launched as a guild, I think the one thing that kind of discouraged us, because, you know, we weren't a hardcore raiding guild, we were just kind of a group of basically 10 friends, sometimes 10 friends. It was tough managing and getting, you know, everybody to get there. But I think the longest part would probably be just even the story mode version, removing the enrage, like the timer on it. Because then it's like you're just learning the mechanic, and
I don't think it has to be too crazy, right? Remove the rewards for the most part. Like, don't give legendary insights and stuff like that.
Yeah, you gotta make it, and I think chat was saying that, make it so it's not like the hardcore players are gonna be like, well, why bother doing the hard stuff if I'm getting the same, you don't want that issue, case either.
Reduce, like you said, remove the enrage timer, which is fairly soft in Guild Wars 2, but still remove it. And then just reduce the damage and timers that these mechanics do to you. You know what I mean? Zero's flamethrower goes around. Maybe that doesn't need to instant kill you. It just takes, 70% of your health or something like that. But make the bosses in general do less damage. And have like no timer so that you can, and scale the rewards appropriately, right? Don't let them get legendary armor. If they want that, then they need to work through and tier themselves up a little bit, right?
Yeah, maybe have it like loot that was from Fractals, where it's like you can get ascended gear and stuff like that, so you could theoretically build up to a ascended set to be like, okay, let me try the hard, I guess now regular rating. It's like.
But anyway, that's just sort of how I feel about that situation. And doing all that stuff takes more time, which is already an issue. You would need to put more resources and people on it. And it's not like you can just pick people up and say, okay, here you go. You're now, there's a limited number of resources. I totally get that, right? From any company standpoint, you'd have to hire more people. And I don't know that that's necessarily feasible, but these are just things that I would love to see happen to both Fractals and Raids and that content in general, because I do think there's replayability there that players miss out on.
Yeah, like chat saying, the training mode or whatever you want to call it, the could have the ascended without skins, or the skins as I wouldn't even say the skins as exotics, because then people would use that as the easier method. Like,
I think that's kind of okay on some levels. I think dropping the blue-green chests and maybe an exotic or something for a boss. And of course you can cap that stuff out and, have the rare chance for it to drop ascended, just like Fractals does, just like whatever. Make it like the tier 3 drop in Fractals, whatever that percentage is, Anyway, you could talk about this for hours, I think, but I think takeaway for me is that you do need to open that game mode up to more people so that they actually care about it. Because right now, I think there's a good portion of the community where raiders are like, QQ, it's been 7 months, where's my content? And everybody's like, who cares? Give me more story.
Yeah. Yeah, give me more story I can play.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm one of the people that really don't raid anymore. I just I want to play with my friends or a group of people I know. I don't want to have to shun someone out because, hey, you're not playing the right build or something like that, which, raiding can come down to that for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I would like it where you could just, a version where it removes basically that enrage timer. Even if it is a more soft one, but when they kind of get super powered like that, it just becomes almost one shot, one kill, or pretty close to it.
I think I might have just triggered a bunch of the raiders in chat.
Uh-oh.
Social awkwardness on Slothosaur.
Oh boy.
But yeah,
instabilities and and I think they did talk about this a little bit in the AMA, that the next Fractal release, which of course is many months away, so please don't get your hopes up. But the next one is going to be, I guess, another Fractal plus possible reworks plus possible stability reworks or something to that effect, right? I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but stabilities or instabilities rather, not so great.
But yeah, like you said, we could talk about this for forever. One of the other things that kind of was brought up, it was the PvP stuff in the AMA, and they did say that there is no PvP legendary armor. We're getting an updated skin in the future, but they would never compare it to a legendary skin. So,
what do you think, Jim? Or Age and Jim, you guys both PvP more than.
It's the same thing. As far as I can tell, they're basically doing the same thing with WvW. Like, I think you can do the legendary update, the legendary upgrade for the armor you can get out of PvP.
Yeah.
There's stupid Grandmaster crafting marks, but and I think the only thing that's missing from that is it having a slightly different skin for it, because like they have the glowy tendril thing on the one WW chess piece. I think that if there was like a like that slightly different looking skin from the Ascended piece into the Legendary piece, I think people would be happy with that.
Yeah, I think if you're going for it, if you have the potential to get PvP legendary armor, chances are you play PvP for the most part, so you use skins more often than actual armor itself. I know there are some players who play PvP for the armor, so but not much of a issue for me there.
I took it to mean the same thing, that it's going to be more like World vs. World with an updated, slightly sparkly version, but it's not going to be on the tier of PvE legendary armor in the sense that it transforms and has moving parts.
That takes a lot of work anyway. And I honestly feel like they don't really have to do that for legendary armor. Just make it like really cool armor. And I think we'll be happy with it. Well, the other thing that they mentioned was Stronghold revamp, which is not a high priority, but they do want to work on it. So I'm actually
map first.
Yeah, because I feel really bad about Stronghold in and of itself, just because it's not a horrible mode. It's just that it's very snowbally, depending on how you
feel
play
bad.
it.
Stronghold.
I mean, depending
That's
how you
my
play
type
it.
of PvP. You barely see another person.
Yeah.
Let me create NPCs, and they do the work. Okay. My
And
kind of PvP.
That's kind of the thing where it kind of has that MOBA-ish aspect to it. I guess tower defense as well, but I think for the most part, when PvP players go into PvP, they want to fight each other, not necessarily mobs. So if it's but if it's more, I think if they revamp it to have more focus on players fighting each other in order to gain ground or lose ground, I think that would be a lot more interesting. I think For Honor kind of does it that way as well. I'm not sure. I haven't played For Honor in a long time, so but I vaguely remember that you gain and lose ground based on pushing mobs away, and then you have an engagement with a fight with another player.
Fighting players in PvP? In player versus player? No, never.
You mean I'm not supposed to be like when they come over to our lane? I'm like, what are you doing here? Get back to yours. It's a race.
I have some thoughts on how to change it, and most of that involves removing the actual interactions with the NPCs for the most part, and just making it kind of an ancillary thing. But that's going to be a huge thing that I'd be rambling.
I really
about, so
think I think they just added this in here to say, okay,
we still know about it.
We still know Stronghold's a thing, but we'll work on it one day, just not anytime soon.
Yeah, and that's what like chat's saying. It's not coming anytime soon. You are right.
Yeah.
Like they said, it's not a high priority, which pretty much means it's pretty far back there. We might see the World v. World revamp before that.
If we have time during the after show, and if I remember, I'll go into it then. But
okay,
hold on to that for now.
They do have several new maps in development, so I kind of can't wait to see that.
Yeah, but so correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they say that a lot of those maps sounded like they were for personal arenas or something?
Yeah, I was gonna say there was like 2 small arena maps, so I don't know if that means it's that or maybe other conquest maps.
What is the point of that?
A new desert themed conquest map, 2 additional small arena maps, I guess for tournaments and stuff.
2v2 maps.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a larger arena map for customer.
For custom arenas, right? Like something about a custom arena map. I don't. I know that custom arenas are still a thing. I know that people use custom arenas, but do we need maps just for custom arena?
Well, maybe they'll extend it into like a rotation, but I don't think there's no queue for 2v2s unless it's for tournaments, I guess. So maybe it's they have those custom arenas for testing, and then if they see if it could fit into a conquest rotation or a 2v2 rotation for tournaments. I don't know.
Yeah, the custom arena thing came off as a little strange to me, but anyway.
I think what Mithrin said is that there's a plan for people setting up their own tournaments.
Yeah.
So a custom tournament system. So you'd be able to say 5v5, 2v2, 1v1, I guess, in some way, shape, or form like that. So that's supporting them, like the system in that way by having multiple maps.
2v2 might be really interesting to see how that develops. We'll see.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the Reddit AMA?
A lot of good lore in there. A lot of good like lore implications. If you're into the story and lore and why they decided to do the story steps that they did, there's a lot of explanation in there. If you're into the technical side of things, Mike Z does go into detail as to what the problems were with servers and so forth as well. So there's some good reads in there.
I would actually like to know that as well. What 7-Bit's asking is, has anyone made any awesome racetracks for the roller beetle in a guild hall yet?
Royer.
Not surprised.
No.
But all right, well, moving away from the AMA. Oh, ask me anything. Yep, there's no. I'm not segueing that way. So, like we said before, this next topic, for anybody that isn't aware, kind of a big argument happened on Twitter. We're not going to be talking about the drama aspect of it, like the insults that were thrown back and forth. We're going to be kind of just trying to stick as much around the game discussion parts of it as possible, and we would, appreciate if you guys did the same. Do not be rude to any of the developers that were involved, or no name calling to the developers or any person that was involved either. So I do, we will, if we have to, time people out, and if it persists, we'll, happily ban you. But, we do want to give respect to both sides. Well, you can be rude to me. I don't care.
Maybe, well, if it's clouded, I guess.
If it's clouded, you'll take it.
But yeah, this past week, it first started out with one of the developers was on their Twitter, and they were talking about working on the player character in like kind of the story instances and the living story stuff, and then a content creator responded to them, and I'm sure people know it was Dror, and kind of threw in their thoughts on like, oh, I would have liked to have seen like kind of, I think the word they said was like kind of more like options, kind of like almost like a BioWare game. I don't know if they exactly said a BioWare game, but
yeah,
kind of more story options that could lead, kind of branching out and then leading back to the main, story
like,
in general. Like,
basically, kind of like how if you've played the personal story, basically how you kind of branch off into different sections of the story there, but eventually you just all go to Claw Island and do that stuff. So it's something along those ideas, but like a bit toned down, I would imagine.
Yeah. And like, chat saying like the SWOTOR branching chat options, which it's like, I mean, some people, I guess, like that. I don't know. I still say SWOTOR is one of the best single player stories, but one of the worst MMO stories, because it's like everybody at the end was, if you were a bounty hunter, everybody was the great bounty hunter. It's like everybody won the championship. It's like,
right,
everybody came in first.
To be fair, that's kind of what Guild Wars 2 is. Like
Oh,
Everybody's the commander. Yeah.
exactly what it is. You're playing that character. There's sort of a slight misconception that every bounty hunter is different, but they're not. They're all the same person. It's just that Age is playing it, and I'm playing it, you're playing it, but you're really just telling the story of the bounty hunter.
But then it's kind of weird that you share the world. Like, that's the issue. But
Right, yeah, but that's outside of the personal story. Right?
yeah, but I mean, I guess that's kind of the problem of having a single player story in an MMO. But, you know, like I said, Doror kind of chimed in with the ideas of, you know, basically how we're talking about, kind of a branching story that kind of reaches the same conclusion. And I think Jessica Price kind of responded with, you know, thanks for telling me how to do my job, and kind of Doror kind of stepped away from it. But then, like I said, and this is where we're kind of leave that portion, is it kind of rolled into this issue about feminism type thing. And, you know, one reason why we really don't want to bring it up, one is this is a Guild Wars 2 show that really doesn't, you know, involve that.
First, before we go like a little bit crazy,
yeah,
there's a little bit of misconception around a lot of what people are reading online about the situation. A lot of the videos that you probably have watched out there, or the articles that you've read, the timeline is a bit wrong and a bit weird. I think it was back in May that Jebro, the Jebro conversation happened. It was a couple of months ago, whatever it was. The Total Biscuit thing was before that. My interaction happened on the 3rd. No, that's not Leo, that's Shira. My conversation happened on the 3rd before DeRoyer had his conversation on the 4th. So me and DeRoyer's interactions were totally separate. It wasn't, a lot of people were reporting that DeRoyer had this interaction and I jumped in afterwards, but that's not what happened. I had a completely separate conversation, not related to the blog post that or the essay or whatever it is you want to say that you tweeted. You know, my interaction had nothing to do with that. Mine had an interaction to do with a different forum post over on the Guild Wars 2 forum. So mine happened on the 3rd, and then DeRoyer's happened on the 4th. And his was a much bigger, what you're talking about now.
Incident. Yeah, snowballing of...
Right.
But, and, you know, I see people bring up in chat, like the Total Biscuit thing. That has nothing to do with the gaming thing. That's on them. And like I said at the beginning of the show, and I forgot to say it here, but I do apologize. If we want to talk more about that stuff and people's opinions, we are going to say that for after show, because we still feel like people deserve a space to vent that kind of thing. And as long as people are respectful of one another, if it turns into name calling, we'll shut it down there. But those types of things we'll save for after show, because while the Total Biscuit thing, that's unfortunately not related to the Guild Wars 2 topic at hand. So, but going, yeah, because there's a lot here.
I'll try to, if you guys have questions, I'll try to grab them and save them for, like, if they're relevant, we'll talk about it, but it'll save for after show if we don't get to you. So.
Like Rando, we've seen the question you just posted. That's kind of outside of the scope of Guild Wars 2. We'll get to that in after show.
Yeah. But yeah, it's yeah, the way like I said, and it kind of snowballed beyond that, just because apparently Jessica Price kind of quoted a tweet of what DeRoyer was saying and kind of made a like sexist spin on it, and then that snowballed into that. But like I said, well, that's all after show stuff. And unfortunately, kind of Reddit caught wind of all of what happened, this whole issue, and the whole you know, kind of DeRoyer asking the question, all that stuff. And of course, like Inks brought up his altercation, I guess, with Jessica about that, and this all happened on July 4th, which for people that aren't aware, in America is a holiday, so it, ArenaNet wasn't, had office that day. But apparently the next day, Mo posts on the forums that the behavior, basically the behavior on the two devs that were involved. So it said, recently 2 of our employees failed to uphold our standards of communicating with players. Their attack on the community were unacceptable. As a result, they're no longer with the company. I want to be clear that the statements they made do not reflect the views of ArenaNet at all. As a company, we always strive to have a collaborative relationship with the Guild Wars community. We value your input. We make this game for you. Mm-hmm. And of course, the first developer was Jessica Price, who, of course, was the one majorly involved. And it seems like the second dev was actually Peter Fries, who defended Price's response to Deror, which kind of threw me a little bit. But yeah, for people who don't know, Peter Fries kind of, worked at Arena for, like what, 12, 13 years?
12 years.
And a little, 7 years as like kind of the narrative designer. But so it's kind of, I'm sad to see both go, because while, I was surprised by the, back and forth, I really personally didn't feel like anybody should have lost their job. Granted, I don't know if there was more to it. That's the important thing to note. And maybe they had another, like maybe Mo gave him another offer and they refused it, and this was the other option. We really don't know. So I think that's important to note as well, because a lot of stuff. But
yeah, there's a lot here that we don't know what happened at ArenaNet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I agree, Chad. I'm sad to see both lose their job, especially in the economy today. I really wish there would have been, some other way we could have figured it out. And like I said, we don't know. Maybe there was another alternative, but possibly they refused it. We just don't know in the end. But I wish both. Talking Skritt isn't omnipotent. Yeah, not yet.
We don't have enough Skritt.
We're working on it. But yeah, so I, personally for me, wish them both luck in finding a new place, and hopefully they find it quickly, because I think what people always say, and I know we said it back and forth a couple of times and leading up to this discussion, is the gaming industry is small. Like, that's probably gonna, everybody kind of knows everybody. It's probably gonna stick with them, which is unfortunate.
It was I think it was yesterday. I was looking around and I found multiple articles about the issue. I saw some YouTubers even making videos about it. Wooden Potatoes put out a video. I didn't watch it completely yet. I didn't have the time. But yeah, it caught fire fast. So.
And Mark Unleashed also brings up a good point, is that there are a lot of people trying to set up this narrative that it was a mob of angry gamers. There's been a quote, and I actually got really angry about this. I think my heart rate jumped a lot on my cardio last night, because I was on Discord in our private server for setting up for the show.
We have like a production one, just so we're not, drowning people in.
A great deal of my time was spent during my cardio researching. Kotaku and The Verge specifically made use of a quote on Reddit from a post about how we can probably get anyone fired if we're loud enough. Is the quote? I saw somebody take a screenshot of the quote. The thing that particularly annoyed me is the fact that The Verge did not source the quote. They did not link to it. Kotaku, at the very least, did link to it, did say that the comment was deleted. However, they failed to mention that it had a score of -5 before it was deleted. So this quote that's being paraded around like this is the consensus of the Guild Reddit community was either completely passed over or basically that people told the guy that, you know, you're just being an ass. He got downvoted and then he deleted the comment. This is not the will of the people. This is not the way the small subsection of the Guild Wars 2 community thinks that you're taking from Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem I'm having here, is that we've got these journalist outlets that are grabbing the clickbait quote from the deleted post, then saying and basically parading it like it's fact.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious what Even Savage is saying is, has anybody actually clicked and seen the history of that account? Like, theoretically, if they wanted to, someone that wanted to make that article theoretically could have went in there and posted that.
Yeah.
He's been I did
okay
the account. He has posted in Guild Wars 2 from time to time.
Moderately, okay.
He's actually somewhat active in that.
Yeah. I would say, like, even if that person was a part of the Guild Wars 2 community, it's a very, very small, like a handful of people who feel that way. A majority of the local people on Reddit do not feel that way. From what I've read, they do not. They're not. They don't feel like they're not happy with the result, but they understood why it happened.
And I know a lot of people were worried because it's like, well, now all the devs are not going to talk, which I don't blame them. Like we said, you know, Peter Freeze has been there for like over 13 years, and like he's been there during Guild Wars 1. I think someone said at, you know, factions, like that was basically halfway-ish. Like, so it's like someone that's such a veteran person there for, you know, there might have been more. We don't know, but from just this being what maybe the straw that broke the camel's back, you know, possibly.
Yeah.
It's just quite scary that someone that's been there for 13 years didn't have enough of goodwill built up. So if I was a dev that was only there for 6 years or freshly new, I'd be like, I'm not going on my social media and, you know, but I have seen some devs coming out saying, you know, they will still be, you know, talking, engaging with people, which, you know, kudos to them. I mean, hopefully people don't go crazy.
Yeah, I have actually, I'm really concerned about all this entire situation because it does have long-term consequences, even though Reddit thinks it's a win. It really isn't. We've all lost in variety of ways. I'm going to go over it in after show because I think it's more relevant there. We're just covering news here, so.
But yeah, so it's like I said. I think it's sad to always, you know, have, you know, lose developers towards it because that probably puts stress on all the other developers there as well, and because they still got a product to put out. So, you know, hopefully, you know, wish everybody, you know, luck and peace of mind. But I mean, a lot of this other stuff I think is more akin to like talking about after show, which, you know, people want to.
Yeah. Can I correct myself real quick? I'm not saying all of Reddit counts as a win. I shouldn't say that because it's not everyone who thinks the same way. So I apologize if I came across as I said that.
I'm a bit disappointed in a number of the articles written on the topic so far. I think that most of them mischaracterize the community in general and make assumptions about how the community feels in general by cherry picking one of the worst comments, or some of the worst comments from that subreddit, instead of showing some of the better comments on the topic or from the community in general. There's been a pretty strong outpouring of support for Peter, the work he's done, and well wishes for him. There, of course, has been some negativity shown to him as well, unfortunately. And I just think that if you're going to write, and I don't get me wrong, I understand why they do and write the articles the way they do, but I think you're doing a discredit to the site that you work for by not sharing both sides of the story and just sharing one side, pushing the more negative of the narratives.
Yeah, I do want to say real quick, if you are a part of the community, actually, you know what? Not even if you're a part of the community, don't harass anyone from this issue. Just don't. They've like people have already gone through enough. You don't need to. You don't need to add on. Right?
That tweet of screenshots of tweets that Peter Freeze got, that just, I'm so just thinking about it now, I'm angry about it. Just the fact that he got that kind of shit after all of this.
No, I did not hear about that, and I don't even know what that is, but it sounds, I was a little displeased when I think it was Mo's statement on the forums, and I think like the first one was like, yes, or like, you know, like, it's like, really? Like, two people just lost their job. Don't be a dick. But in the end, on both sides, it was just garbage people doing garbage things.
Well,
No side came out good in this, is, you know. But any final thoughts on all this? And like I said, if people want to delve into placed event, we'll talk after show, and you know,
I think this
as long as respectful.
I think this actually does bring up the discussion of in the gaming industry, there are devs that do like to talk about certain things, and is there going to be, like, in the gaming industry, do we need to are companies going to enforce like a social media policy about how you interact with your audience? Because there are companies that talk about how you conduct yourself, and it's a really interesting discussion to have, just because people have personal accounts, and they talk about certain things. They say in their feed, I work blah blah blah, opinions are my own, don't reflect company, things like that. But people know who you are, and if you talk about your work in a certain way, it could have impact. Like, let's say you work at a company and you say, like, I hate my job, and you let out a few details about what's happening, and the company may not like that, and maybe according to their policy, they're well within their rights to have you fired. Like, is this something that the gaming industry as a whole have to talk about? That's my question to you guys.
I think a lot of companies do have those social media policies in place for a good deal of them. Not just video game companies or video game industry.
Yeah.
Tech industries absolutely have it. I can promise you. I've seen it before.
I was going to say, I was talking about it during the week. I was like, I feel like this is lowballing it, but I wouldn't be surprised if 90% of companies out there, usually they say if you identify yourself in your personal account as I work at X company, you now represent that like if you're saying something bad or negative, or it's like if they can see where you work, that can be grounds for an issue. Not necessarily firing, but a possible issue. I know I have it at where I work, is they say if you put the company name and you start, bad mouthing people or something like that, we see that as, potentially on us as well. So, and
Alaska says, they work at Costco. They absolutely have a social media policy. Restaurants have a social media policy, generally speaking.
It's image.
Yeah, nearly any industry has said policy. Government absolutely has that policy. Sometimes you're not even allowed to have a social media account if you work for the government, depending on what you do.
Regardless of people's thoughts on the man, the president of the United States, it was ruled that he was not able to block people on Twitter because he used it as a way of officially communicating with the populace, because to block people would be to violate the First Amendment in the United States. So that's kind of an incredibly extreme level of your job interfering with your social media accounts, but there you have it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, and it seems like chat is saying that it's just a lot of companies do have that kind of a policy. Like I said, I feel like that's lowballing of saying 90% just because of this age, the age we live in of technology, and social media is such, the image for them.
Yeah.
So, but this is like starting to teeter away from the actual story, but
well, not necessarily, because I still feel like you could still link it to gaming, because it's in a kind of a I don't
like
know
devs discussing it. Okay.
Yeah, because like with WoW, I think they have just one account, Warcraft devs, right? And
I think they made it like that for
that
kind of that
happened.
reason.
I want to say either late Mists or early Warlords of Draenor. And let me tell you, reporting on World of Warcraft news got a lot more boring once they stopped being allowed to post on their forums or talk about it on Twitter.
Okay.
So we should be worried if we see Guild Wars 2 devs at Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
No. All right. Well, any final thoughts on all of that?
None that can be talked during the main show.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of just seemed like after a while, two, social bubbles like colliding, almost like two social worlds. Speaking of two worlds colliding, world versus world server restructuring.
You actually used it. I can't.
Yeah, I did. So good not to.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Dave.
So this past week on the forums, we got a post about the World server restructuring, which is kind of the thing that's leading into the whole alliances and stuff like that. So they did say no date to share at the moment for when it goes live, but currently have back-end systems in place that will track, store, and handle changes to the alliance structure of guilds. The UI is not done yet. They can field test the back-end systems, and they said kind of next up is the front-end systems and the back-end matchmaking. So the project is not small in scale. The issues on live could affect the new server systems. So, I mean, it looks like here alliance size is being around 500, it looks like.
It seems like it, yeah.
So minimum guild size requirement seems to be 10. So.
Well, the 500 kind of makes sense because there are technically 5 WvW maps, and you can have 100 players per world per map. So
yeah,
basically the alliance hits the, this is the absolute cap of every map. That makes sense to field that. Although I guess you could say 600 if you wanted to put 100 players in Obsidian Sanctum, but I don't know why you would do that.
Yeah.
I think that would be for the lulz.
Guild fights.
So a world would probably consist of built from any number of alliances, guilds, and solo players. So that's rewards, tournaments. What?
So it's
what? No, it says tournaments.
That's a small percentage of succeeding in that, because they're definitely going to see how the restructuring goes, and that's probably going to take a couple of months to actually get a good amount of data to determine, and then they'll possibly look into tournaments and seeing how that can work, but that'll take another while as well. So.
But how else am I gonna get my 2 blues and a green?
You have dailies for that.
But Alliance Q might slightly go up. Large worlds will have no problem. Alliance Chat has a few technical expectations. It's an interesting phrasing. But
I think that in a programming standpoint is there are a few expectations that have to be met first before Alliance Chat can be taken care of. So it's one of those things where they actually need to create the channel for the text to go into first before, like, they don't have the tech to add the channel, basically.
Okay.
Well, I mean, so far, how do you like the sounds of it? I know it's like very bare bones and nothing really to like.
We've been talking about needing a WvW, like a non-server link to WvW solution for years now. So any progress on it is good progress.
And I kind of agree with like Netco is, you know, they really got to look at a reward system. Like, I think we were talking about this in the AMA, kind of in general. Like, I think that's the hardest thing that Guild Wars 2's always had a struggling thing with is.
You mean like the rewards issue that I complain about literally every season for ranked PvP because your final rank doesn't actually matter? I'll stop now.
But yeah,
War vs. World is really difficult for rewards as well because that system can be easily gained.
That's and
on freaking servers.
That's why I think they're waiting till the actual restructuring is done to see how, if at all, players can gain from the server or play the servers.
Okay, well, let's move away from War. Hopefully, we get a little bit more information down, here and there, as we progress closer and closer. This past Friday, they had a guild chat on the Deepstone Fractal. That was the Fractal that released with this most recent Living Story update. With guests Alex Kane, Jason Reynolds, Peter Larkin, and Ben Arnold. And I like how they say like it's kind of like a more darker Indiana Jones story,
It is kind of, yeah.
With a Minds of Moria feel. This is like hitting all the right notes. Like these are all the great words I'm hearing.
Yeah.
But have you guys had a chance to see the guild chat or even go into the Deepstone Fractal?
I think I caught half the guild chat, and I played the tier 4 Fractal once so far. It's a good Fractal. Fun story. Not super difficult, although they don't all have to be super difficult, mind you. There's a fun little find the hidden chests achievement that you can continue to do. It's a good Fractal. I mean, it looks amazing. There's a nice little story and dialogue there. I didn't even notice the spider thing, but Ben Arnold, I think it was Ben Arnold, was talking about how he sort of, and he said it really wasn't a whole lot of technical work necessarily, but how he sort of changed the spider pathing a little bit to make them more act like spiders. Instead of just coming straight at you, they sort of zigzag and come at you, and they sort of come in and out when they're fighting. And
they don't need to make spiders more believable in this game.
Sure they do.
They really don't.
I mean, I'm not the biggest spider fan. I'm not really an arachnophobia, but I don't love spiders touching me.
I don't think anybody does, really.
I don't want to have a pet spider. There's people out there who love having pet spiders. That's not really my thing personally, but yeah, I don't know. They're interesting in games. I'm okay with them there.
And like this, if they're improving spider tech, well, let's get that spider mount that they were working on. Except, half the staff said that they wouldn't work on it.
Yeah, so. It's like heavy case of arachnophobia.
Didn't Rift have a spider mount?
Rift had the
mechanical spider, wasn't it?
I don't remember if it was mechanical or not, but
they had the hell bugs from Defiance. They had several spiders. I think they were more tarantula-looking things.
Yeah.
So yeah, and
I mean, they didn't climb up walls or nothing. They're just mounts.
No, rift mounts were just go faster kind of mounts.
Yeah, typical MMO mounts. It was a mech spider. Oh,
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how I know that.
I think people are a little bit less creeped out by mechanical spiders.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What if you had a spider mount, but then you dressed it up with like a scarf and a hat? Does it make it still scary? little monocle, little top hat.
How many monocles
scarf.
would it need, though?
Just one.
No, 4.
I would say 4, all on one side. I was just gonna say.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
You could put sunglasses on it, or dress it up a little bit.
In before that meme of how would a spider wear pants?
Get a little socks on its feet or something. Winter's Day spider. Is that really as scary if it's a Winter's Day spider with mittens and stuff? I don't know.
Jeez.
Maybe not.
There you go. Make it like the Sab spider. So there you go. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
There we go. Problem solved.
That'd be a good skin option.
Anyway, I don't think we're going to see a spider bounce.
Yeah.
Probably not now.
Oh.
I actually asked that question too when we've seen the spider boss, but somebody pointed out the difference is the spider mount you're riding to do something, and so it's persistent, where the spider is a boss that you kill and get it away from you quickly.
Yep.
Any final thoughts on the Deepstone Fractal or the Guild chat itself?
It was a good episode. Lots of insights from both story and development. So if you're into either of those aspects of that, it's a good watch.
Yeah, I really like the language creation process that they had.
Cipher, yeah. I'm interested in what he says now, really.
Yeah, that was a really cool thing to see. Like, I don't really delve into it too much, but I'm kind of interested in how languages are created in video games and how you translate that to like in English or French or like languages that are used in games to look for localization. So
I would say I see QED mentioned it, and since Inks, you said you tried the higher, at least some of the higher version of it. Would you agree with their sentiment on? It was basically kind of like Molten Furnace in a dwarven setting, no real skips, easy boss fights, and nothing challenging really at all. Or
yeah, they said that it was one of the easier fractals that they made, and when I went through it, I'm like, I was actually thinking of QED, and I was thinking like he would enjoy this if this was like had a challenge mode. I think
I would say like I went in there with a group of random people. None of us had ever done it. One person from stream and the rest of the people were randoms. None of us had ever done it, and we just fumbled our way through the whole thing without ever feeling like we were going to die or be in danger, or you know what I mean? We just went to the boss, and then we went to the other boss, and then we went to the puzzle, and I don't know. It all went fairly fast. It's like I said, it's beautiful. The environment is beautiful. It's a fun little story that's being told there, I think. As far as challenge goes, personally, I didn't find it super challenging. I would have loved to have a CM of this, just so that there was a slightly more challenging one. That's not to say I think every single fractal needs to be super difficult challenging, but I'm also in favor of making CMs for almost all of these fractals at some point in time, for those who want that challenge and a little bit of extra reward.
Isn't that something that they can always go back and add in, though?
They could, yeah.
But it's finding the time.
I don't know if they will, but they certainly could, right?
Yeah.
I could see that. Like, I would say eventually, like for all of the tier 4 fractals, I would say it would be a good effort to try and put the challenge mode into at least the tier 4s.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's where your upper echelons of players are running anyway, so.
Yeah.
Well,
I think
Yeah, cool.
I think sort of the disappointment from some people when it comes to this particular fractal or this release is that we had to wait extra long, of course, for the last two episodes. Both episode 2 and episode 3 were delayed by different margins and different amounts. And so when this episode releases, people are salivating and hungry for content. And then you get and if you're a fractal lover, you then get a fractal that is fun and interesting, but not really a challenge for you. And so you're just kind of like, okay, I did that. Now what? And unfortunately, sometimes it's going to just happen with the development. I'm excited for the next fractal in the sense that they said there might be a rework, there might be some general instability changes and stuff, but we're also like 6 months away from that. So I'm not really like, I can't wait. It's Christmas tomorrow. You know, you're going to be waiting a while.
Well, hopefully they have like a larger chunk of content if they're talking about reworks and instability changes alongside a new fractal. So.
Well, hopefully we'll hear more about that maybe before it releases, but be kind of cool. Well, moving on from Guild Chat and the Deepstone Fractal, we got Gem Store. And always, thank you, Dolphy.net. Check out Dolphy.net so you can spend your gems more wisely. So first up, we got the Infinite Volatile Magic Gathering Tool Set for 2,700 gems. So it does give you all three, one of each gathering type. And it gives you basically they come with a glyph that as you mine, it will have a chance of giving you the volatile magic, which is the kind of all through season 4 currency.
It looks cool. The complaint I've heard is that it's slow.
It just looks slow. It's the same speed as anything else.
I was gonna say, like, does it look cool? Like, I like the. I like the.
It's absorbing the essence of the things you're mining.
Well, I was gonna say, I don't mind the wood gathering one because you're kind of like almost like holding it, like pulling the essence away. The other ones are just like standard animation of some of the other gathering tools.
I got to admit, yeah. Now that you mention it, well, so the mining tool is the same animation for, and I'm going to couch this all in Elementalist because that's the animations I know the most. Elementalist Scepter Fire 1.
Oh,
that's the same animation for fire auto attack. And then the animation for the harvesting tool is actually the same animation for, it's like the intro animation for Meteor Storm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that I think is a unique animation is the lumber tool. And I'm not 100% sure that that's unique.
I mean,
looks cool,
honestly, comparing it to the, what's the other one?
The laser beam one.
Yeah, I forget what the original one was.
Unstable.
Unstable.
Yeah.
Like, you were shooting laser beams. And this one's just like...
The animation and stuff doesn't... I mean, a lot of them are reused. It doesn't necessarily bother me. It's just... I tend to like... For example, I really like my Consortium sickle because it's a fast sweep, and so, there's a couple of them out there that seem to be like a little bit faster than others. These are sort of like normal gathering tool speed, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
About that, yeah.
And chat saying the lumber one is the skill point commune animation, which I wonder if that changes per profession and
or a race, maybe.
Yeah, but not per profession, race and gender or something. Because like I don't remember my Norn like being like.
I think it depends who you are too. So, for example, I just don't have enough. I don't have enough time and hours in the day. But if you run a lot of Istan meta events, then you probably have lots of volatile magic, and these tools probably seem kind of less useful to you. I don't, so there's value of attraction here for me. So I guess it probably depends on who you are and whether you find these tools valuable to you or not.
Yep. Oh, for anybody wondering, we've already confirmed that Arlie bought her set.
Oh, did she buy her set? I mean, I was tempted. I think they're still too expensive.
I think she might be in chat. I don't know.
I know she was originally, but I don't know if she's still there. But yeah, I don't know. It's like, I just like the animation of the Unbound one. So, I don't know. It's just, I wish they would, you know, they have the skinless, like, Infinite Gathering tools. I wish they would just have that as a set of things and then just sell, you know, skins and the glyphs, or, you know, bundle them together or whatever. That because I really don't need any more of the, you know, and I don't want to pay for them when I'm not, like, really don't want to use them. And I've seen some people suggest, you know, like, just delete them. It's like, I'm not paying for it and then just deleting it.
Personally, I don't mind the animation. I'm using it for the glyph, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I don't have it, but that's the reason I would use it. My issue is this: for gathering tools as a whole, right now I've got a lot of gathering tools that I previously bought, and most of those don't have glyphs, but I paid the same price as this. So the plus side is if you're new to the game or maybe you don't own many of the tools, then you're getting extra value here because it has a glyph. I really wish ArenaNet would go back and add some kind of random glyph, or even if it was a crappy glyph, I don't even care. But put some kind of glyph on my old tools, because I'm not going to buy more tools when I have infinite tools that just don't have glyphs. Now I can buy those off the trading post, but those things are heavily marketed and heavily traded. So good luck getting a decent price on some of these things.
Yep.
Always patience.
Yeah, that's right. Patience.
Because they will.
And yeah, Talisi is right. If you really just want glyphs, just buy them from the trading post. Don't try and RNG your way through it, because luck is not on your side.
Apes can tell you about opening Black Lion chests.
Yeah.
Unless you're hypnotic and opening like 250 of them.
Or Teapot. Yeah, those guys open a lot in one sitting.
Crazy people.
Yeah, you can pick those up for 2,700 gems. They are account bound, so you can switch them between your characters. So you could theoretically have infinite gathering tools and slowly get the season 4 currency as you're just leveling in the world. But also returning Black Wings Glider combo for 700 gems and the White Wings Glider combo for 700 gems, and they are a back piece and also glider. So
just returning in general, I didn't read.
No. Also Bram's heavy armor skin, Magitech medium armor skin, and the Phoenix light armor skin, each set for 800 gems, and they are armor skins, so you know, you can mix and match if you want. So if you like a little bit of something, you know, you gotta buy the whole set, unfortunately. But
are they for sale or on sale?
On sale. They're 800 gems. So, or for sale. Sorry.
For sale. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just returning.
Magitech. If you that's good. Like Magitech is good looking stuff. So, I actually think that's what Timey is wearing now.
I think so too.
Yep.
So,
well, no, Timey has her own outfit now, but she was wearing Magitech at one point.
Yeah.
Also, you can get the Daydreamer's Wing backpack set for 500 gems, the Sloth backpack for 500 gems, and the plush baby Irene backpack for the people that would like the cute little Irene, 400 gems. So, any strong recommendations of like, oh, you should pick up any of these? Or
Magitech is probably the strongest recommend.
I've seen a lot of people use Magitech in like some of their like
Do you like
mix and matches.
ridiculously large helmets on Asura? Then Bram's heavy armor helmet.
Aren't those like all helmets on Asura?
Yeah, but he's got horns on his.
Yeah, those horns really do scale weirdly.
Extra.
Yeah, the horns are gigantic on Asura. I wore that for the longest time on my Guardian.
I have to admit, I really do appreciate Asura in heavy armor, especially the Asura cultural heavy armor. Like
The full outfit.
it looks so like it actually looks like you could just kind of run into people and kill them as an Asura, and it's great.
And Magic was Scarlet, and Timing's wearing a
Good
different.
old Primeval sets.
Mm-hmm. Any final? Oh God, chat saying Asuran, Bram's helm, and a bobblehead. That might break the game. That's just too much. But yeah, any final thoughts on the guild or the guild store, gem store?
If you don't have Magic, if you don't have infinite tools, all-time Magic tools are probably good.
Yeah,
They've been
because
doing a lot of.
Oh, go
Sorry.
ahead.
They've been doing a lot of on-sale stuff or for-sale stuff lately, so it's a good change from them. To see it more active, at least like revolving stuff in the gem store, at least for those who want that stuff. I know that we've complained in the past that they don't do that enough. They are doing it, so
Yeah, gotta give them credit where credit's due. Yeah.
right. Hat tip to ArenaNet.
Yeah, and kind of like what Asia was saying with the infinite gathering tools. Nice thing is, since these are bundled together, normally when you buy one of them separately, it's 1,000 gems. So you are getting all three for 2,700. So you do save, you know. And you get a glyph. Because I'm in the same boat as Inks. All my gathering tools are old ones, so I don't get glyphs.
If you're ever looking to get infinite gathering tools and you don't have them already, wait for a pack. 100%. Just wait for a pack of them to get the discount.
All right. Well, I guess I don't know. It seemed like there wasn't that much out there in the community just because of all the stuff that went down. It kind of put a damper on people, which, you know, understandable. Is there anything you guys have done this week that, you know, shout out, or maybe someone that you came across? I know we talked about like Wooden Potatoes follow-up video, and a lot of people were saying in chat that it was definitely a well-constructed one. So, you know, definitely that's out there. But
I was moving all week, so I rarely saw anything beyond the stuff that happened this week. So
I got nothing.
Nothing for me.
Gosh, you know that the events sort of like capitalized the week, but I think Tekken had a couple of actually DeRoyer had a couple of videos on how to farm this or that.
Oh yeah, Kryptonite.
And Tekkit had a video with a couple of more taco markers for those of you guys who use taco. I don't use taco, but I know a lot of people do.
Crichton Harold.
Oops, yeah, she had an interview with Boots that was very good.
oh,
AKA
yeah, I
the guy
remember.
who makes the best builds in the game.
Boots best build.
No.
Yeah, it's the name of the segment, right? Boots best builds.
Yes.
As long as he makes cancer builds. Oh.
But yeah, definitely check all those out. It's, I do apologize because it just seems like from this week, it was draining.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely check those out. And we'll do it for this week. So Jim, where can they find you?
I can be found on Twitter at MelFanusMML. You can also find me here on twitch.tv/TalkingSkrit. Live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for our Zero to Hero PvP nights, where I am trying to NG this season. At the moment, Hollowsmith, I kind of understand it. I might try some Scrapper just to switch things up from time to time, but come hang out. Hope to see y'all there.
Awesome. And Age, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube at Age Night Road. I streamed yesterday. I'm done moving, so I'll start streaming again more regularly. I still have to make the videos I promised people, Thief intro video and State of the Game, which is going to change drastically now. So there you go. That's what's coming up.
Awesome. And Inks, where can they find you?
Twitter, YouTube at MMO Inks. Like Age, I'm really behind on the YouTube front. It's actually very nice today, but the heat has been so bad that I haven't been able to record audio for like a week. We'll get there though. Lots of videos to make, lots of streaming to do. So hope to see people come out.
Awesome. And you can find me at simply_Deo on Twitch and Twitter. Haven't really been streaming that much. Been kind of working behind the scenes on our shifting of the channel stuff that we've talked about. I don't want it to go on much further because I don't want us to be, Steam or Valve and soon. So we'll get that to you soon. That didn't work out very well. Yeah, when it's ready.
That for the trademark.
It's on the table. We got a table. We put it on it. We're good. But unfortunately, I can't say thank you to everybody, and because Twitch hates us. But if you did host us, I greatly appreciate it. I'm glad lots of people came out, at least from the chat scrolling up, because Twitch won't tell me. But yeah, thank you everybody for hanging out. If you are watching this at the very end, do stick around. We do a bit of an after show, and if people want, we can talk more about the other stuff that surrounded, that we talked about during the show, as long as we're respectful and all that stuff. But if you are just watching at the very end, if you want to watch this, we do highlight it on Twitch. But if you do want to watch this on YouTube, it goes up on Sundays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, and just search Talking Skritt, usually the first one that pops up. And that will be that for this week. Thank you all for coming out, and we'll see you next time in the game. Good night, everybody.
Good night, friends.
Yes.